A very good morning to you. Welcome to the broadcast. As always, it's a pleasure to have you with us as we get to finalize this particular week. It's November the 12th, 2021. You're watching Morning Express, and my name is Jesse Rogers. As usual, we're happy you could actually make time to tune in this early in order to be informed about the latest developments. As usual, we'll take a look at what's transpiring in today's dailies, the local dailies, and I have with me Kenya's bold newspaper, The Standard, and the Daily Nation. A lot to do with the happenings at the Football Kenya Federation. That's on the front page of The Standard, as you saw earlier. Is it the beginning of the end for Mwendwa, the man who has been at the helm of the football in Kenya for quite some time? And it's a new game plan hinted right there by the Sports Cabinet Secretary Amina Mohamed, who just yesterday sent the Football Kenya Federation officials packing and appointed a caretaker team, setting the stage for a major battle with the ousted boss, who has vowed to fight on till the end. Many questions arising from these particular changes, especially the impending FIFA ban. Is the cost of that particular ban worth it in terms of clearing our accounts with the FKF? We'll definitely try and take a look at what's happening within the Football Federation. That's on the front page of The Standard, and that's what you can expect, as well as Kome appealing that particular ruling by the High Court on her hiring the 6 judges. Interesting turn of events right there, even as the former Kenya Power bosses face fresh audit. A lot is covered on The Standard, so make sure you grab yourself a copy. The Daily Nation as well, going with the youthful angle on the front page, where the youth are actually saying it's our time. That's on the headlines, where it's all about the rise of the youth with big dreams of leadership. Youthful aspirants are eyeing positions in next year's elections, banking on support from their peers and hoping to break the jinx of dismal performance in past contests. However, millions of youth who have voted for the first time in 2022 squandered the chance to register as voters in the recently concluded enrollment. And we have a couple of ambitious youthful figures put on the front page of the dailies. Perhaps I can just show you. Some are vying for the presidency position, others throwing their jab at the governor, senator's position, members of parliament as well. And it would be interesting to see how many actually make it all the way. It's good that they're rising, and it's our time, according to the Daily Nation front page. So that's what you can expect. But before we delve deeper into this particular stories, let's take a look at what's transpiring internationally first of all. And we'd like to begin with the East African countries, the Daily Monitor, the latest from Uganda. And there you have it, one of the major stories covered. Born again, Musenero denies swindling 31 billion shillings COVID cash. Unfortunate right there. We're addressing journalists. Dr. Musenero strongly denied the allegations. She's born again, that's what she said, and therefore can't take the money. Raises questions. Anyway, Museveni is our 2026 presidential candidate. Oh my, says Tanga Odoi. Quite unfortunate right there. But he's NRM Secretary General, that's Richard Tochwong, asked anti-Museveni elements to go and rear ducks. So it seems Museveni is at the helm of NRM for quite some time, and equally at the helm of Uganda. Let's see how 2026 will play out. But de Klerk, the late right now, apologizes for apartheid in posthumous video, where de Klerk said he made the apology both in his personal capacity and as the former leader of the National Party, which instituted the violent apartheid system of segregation. The Nobel Peace Prize winner definitely passed on just recently, but that is a good turn of events, apologizing for his misdeeds. But remember, he shared a Nobel Peace Prize with Nelson Mandela due to the miraculous transition from white rule in the country to black rule. That's the latest following his demise. UK-based Catholic priest withdraws case against Masaka socialite. That's the latest from Uganda. Crossing over to Tanzania, One of the major stories covering Vodacom Tanzania, who have been ordered to pay the Revenue Authority 3 billion Tanzanian shillings due to withholding tax on purchase of a computer software from the Siemens Telecommunication Limited. More details on that, even as KRA right here is trying to reel in on those who are evading tax or withholding as well. U.S. envoy wishes to see Zanzibar-style cooperation on the mainland, where the U.S. ambassador to Tanzania just adding his voice and expressing his sentiments in that particular country he's been assigned to. Water shortage bites in Dar es Salaam as rationing kicks in. More details on that, even as Tanzania emerges as regional medical hub. Good news for the medical sector in that country. Let's cross over to Rwanda today. One of the major stories touching on the health sector, COVID-19 numbers decline, but holiday period worries officials. The lockdown and strict curfew rules the government put in place last year made it difficult for people to enjoy the December holidays. But this time round, the holidays are here, and minimum restrictions from the government in terms of they've just reopened the economy. So a couple of fears from those in the health sector in terms of the potential spread of COVID-19. And I guess that's why we're urging you to get vaccinated in order to protect not just yourself, but your loved ones. Tanzania reports 725 COVID-19 deaths. Remember, since almost 20 months ago, we haven't had clear statistics from Tanzania, but a quick shift of focus in the current government has definitely enabled the statistics to come out. Zimbabwe judges toss out president's nude picture case. More details on that, even as farmers cite cost and dry season for persistent milk shortage. That's the latest from Rwanda. Perhaps you can take a look at the global stage, CNN World News. And there we have it. Appeals court grants Trump's request on White House records. And of course, all this to do with the January 6th investigation report and filing to pose their release in last-ditch effort to keep documents related to that particular investigation a secret. More details on that. An Olympic gold medalist says she was pepper sprayed in a racist attack. Unfortunate right there, even as Hong Kong's Captain America protester has been jailed for nearly 6 years. Find out more on that, even as she gets history resolution, only the third ever issued by the Chinese Communist Party. A lot happening around the world, and definitely CNN World News has covered that for us. We'll definitely keep you updated even as we focus on developments happening not just across the world, but equally closer home. Ethiopia has been the key aim of focus for many international bodies due to the state of emergency in that particular country. But that's the latest on the international scene. Okay, so let's take a look at a couple of stories that featured prominently just yesterday night and will definitely feature in today's dailies. And we begin in the corridors of justice in Embu, where the High Court has slapped a 30-year jail sentence to Michael Mudhini, the main suspect in the murder case of Father Michael Maingi Kiengo, a Catholic priest from Machakos County, who was killed and his body buried in a shallow grave in Makima, Mbere South. KTN's Moige William reports.
26-year-old Michael Mudhini keenly followed as Lady Justice Lucy Njuguna read through her judgment in the case of the killing of the other parish priest, Machakos County, Father Michael Kiengo. Slapped with a 30-year imprisonment, Mudhini, dumbfounded, could only manage to raise his arm. In her ruling, High Court Judge Lady Justice Njuguna noted that there was no justification for murder. This is after the accused, who early admitted to killing the priest, attributing his act to sexual abuse by the deceased.
Even assuming that the deceased was sodomized as he arranged, he ought to have used the legal avenues open to him so that justice could be served, but he decided to take the law into his own hands.
Following the ruling by the High Court, the family of the late Father Kiengo acknowledged the ruling.
Alikuwa anategemewa na kanisa lake, the congregant wake, na walimpoteza, walikuwa wanampenda. Kwa hivyo, it was very unfair. It was very unfair to kill a very innocent father.
For the last 2 years since the case started to date, it's not a long time, and we appreciate that the judiciary did not take long to make the point of judgment or the sentence given to him.
Charged alongside Muthini, Wakavinya Mwangangi and Solomon Mutaya, who denied killing the priest. The 43-year-old priest had disappeared from his parents' Tala home in Matungulu, Machakos County on October 5th, 2019, only for his body to be found on October 16th, 2019, in a shallow grave in a seasonal river in Makema, Embu County. The case against the second and the third accused in the killing of the priest will be heard on November 17th, 2021. Moige William, KTN News.
Now let's focus on what is on the front page of the Standard, all to do with the new game plan at the Football Kenya Federation, where the drama surrounding the management of football in the country continues to play out after suspended FKF officials maintained they're going nowhere. The Ministry of Sports earlier in the day barred Football Kenya Federation from running football activities until further notice. The Sports Cabinet Secretary, Ambassador Amina Mohammed, says the government is in talks with the world governing body FIFA with the hopes of avoiding a ban. Jeff Mogire with more on this.
The Ministry of Sports has appointed a 15-member caretaker committee to run football activities in the country as Football Kenya Federation officials step aside, awaiting conclusion of investigation. This follows recommendation by a prop committee appointed by the sports registrar. The report pointed out massive misappropriation of funds at Football Kenya Federation. The committee will be led by Justice Retired Aaron Ngera.
Following these recommendations and in order to preserve the sport of football in our country, I have agreed to appoint a Football Kenya Federation Caretaker Committee comprising of the following for a period of 6 months.
The Sports CS was expected to appear before the Senate's Labour and Social Welfare Committee to respond to queries on FKF audit. Amina was nowhere to be seen. Rather, a letter addressed to the committee's chair, Johnson Sakaja, requested for more time.
It's a letter that seems to assume, as though she doesn't know that she's supposed to be here, that the Constitution requires that she shows up when she's called by the committee. It is not okay. It is not acceptable, Chair.
I want to direct that the Cabinet Secretary of Sports and Heritage, Sports, Culture and Heritage, be issued with summons to appear on Tuesday at 10 a.m. Number two, I want to reiterate the Speaker's directive that was given earlier.
While the members of the committee were discussing her absence, Amina dropped a bombshell, disbanding FKF from running football activities in the country.
I'm hoping that, in fact, we can now engage very seriously with FIFA to make sure that not just the laws of Kenya, but that their statutes, including their values and principles in terms of ethics, that all those are adhered to.
The report recommended investigative agencies to come on board to investigate the extent of the rot at the Kandanda House. Further, it recommends those found guilty to be held to account. FKF has responded to the ministry's action, insisting they are legally in office.
What do you envisage, David, honestly? I don't even want to discuss it. It's unacceptable, it's rubbish. It's rubbish, they don't understand what they're doing. They need to wait for the elections and then they remove us.
The current football stalemate does not only hurt the sport, but also puts players' careers in jeopardy. World governing body FIFA is yet to respond to the latter. Jeff Mogire, KTN News, Nairobi.
Now, crossing borders, de Klerk, the former president of South Africa and the last white person to lead the country, has died at the age of 85. De Klerk, who was also a key figure in the nation's transition to democracy, had been diagnosed with cancer this year. He was the head of state between September 1989 and May 1994. In 1990, he announced he was releasing anti-apartheid leader Nelson Mandela, leading to multi-party polls in 1994. Now, de Klerk shared the Nobel Peace Prize with Mr. Mandela for helping to negotiate an end to apartheid, but he has been a divisive figure in South Africa. Here's our report by our broadcasting partners, the BBC, looking back at the life of the former South African leader.
Today, we have closed the book on apartheid, and that chapter is finally closed.
The force of history would have ended white supremacy in South Africa eventually. But without F.W. de Klerk, the transformation to non-racial democracy could have been a lot more painful. He saw that his country had to change, and he delivered. Mr. de Klerk knew very well what lay behind the chaos and violence in black townships, provoked by rigid racial segregation. For years, as a minister in South Africa's white minority government, he'd helped entrench apartheid. Then F.W. de Klerk became president in 1989, replacing P.W. Botha, the last apartheid dinosaur. And President de Klerk's approach was very different.
The prohibition of the African National Congress, the Pan-Africanist Congress, the South African Communist Party and a number of subsidiary organizations is being rescinded.
Within a year, Nelson Mandela finally walked to freedom. F.W. de Klerk had ordered his release and unbanned the ANC, acts he knew must number his own days in power. But talks to end white minority rule opened old wounds in black politics. There was terrible violence in the townships between the ANC and its Zulu rivals of Inkatha, violence that was actively fomented by the white security apparatus. And white extremists too were up in arms, upset at the prospect of a black government. De Klerk sensed the threat and outmanoeuvred them by offering a whites-only referendum in 1992. He craved backing and he won it. Now change was unstoppable. The world acknowledged that. And in 1993, Mr. de Klerk was jointly awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, along with the man who would replace him as president. Although Nelson Mandela was sometimes infuriated by F.W. de Klerk, he called him a man of integrity.
So help me God.
President Mandela's inauguration in 1994 was partly a tribute to Mr. de Klerk's vision. Some of his former colleagues complained he'd been opportunistic, merely seizing a moment. But he did seize the moment.
Never again on 1 inch of the soil of the Republic of South Africa will there ever be racial discrimination again.
And so for white South Africans, F.W. de Klerk can stand tall in history.
Okay, may he rest in peace. Let's shift focus to the corridors of justice now locally, where Chief Justice Martha Koome has filed a notice of appeal against the High Court verdict directing her to swear in 6 judges left out of appointment by President Uhuru Kenyatta in June this year. George Maringa with the details.
That upon the lapse of the 14 days in A above, without the first respondent having made the appointments, it shall be presumed that his power to make them has expired and his office becomes functus, so far as the appointments are concerned, and the 6 nominees shall be deemed duly appointed, effective from the date of default.
22 days after a 3-judge bench of the High Court ordered that Chief Justice Martha Koome swears in the 6 judges left out in the last appointment should the President fail to appoint them, the head of the judiciary is appealing the decision.
That subsequent to their being deemed appointed and B above, that 3rd respondent, in conjunction with the first interested party, shall be at liberty to take all necessary steps to swear the 6 judges.
In a notice of appeal filed by Muma and Kanjama advocates, the CJ says she is aggrieved by the High Court judgment and that she will be appealing against it. The 6, Justice Agri Muchelule, Justice Weldon Korir, Justice Professor Joel Ngugi, Justice George Odunga, Chief Magistrate Evans Kiago Makori, and Registrar of the High Court Judith Omange had all been nominated by the Judicial Service Commission to serve in the Court of Appeal. According to the High Court judgment, the 6 were supposed to be sworn in on the 5th of November this year by the Chief Justice. The matter is currently at the Court of Appeal, awaiting a ruling on 2 applications by the President and Attorney General to halt the High Court order. That High Court judgment seemingly marked a climax to a battle that had sprawled between the judiciary and executive for slightly over 2 years, and the latest move by the Chief Justice will without doubt set the stage for another legal battle, this time filed by the head of the judiciary, Chief Justice and President of the Supreme Court of Kenya, Martha Koome. George Maringa, KTN News.
Now, the Independence Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, has rejected nomination rules submitted by all political parties. According to the Elections Act 2011, political parties are required to submit their nomination rules to the commission at least 6 months before the nomination of its candidates. IEBC Chairperson Wafula Chebukati has directed the parties to revise and submit their nomination regulations by Tuesday, November the 16th. Our senior political affairs reporter Patrick Amimo has more.
On 15th October this year, IEBC released new party nomination guidelines for the party primaries scheduled to take place between January and May 26th next year. According to IEBC Elections Operational Plan, all political parties intending to participate in the 2022 general election were to submit their political party nomination rules to the Commission by 18th October 2021. In a brief communication to the newsrooms Wednesday night, IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati said 89 political parties submitted party nomination rules by 18th October. Chebukati says that from the review, none of the political parties has fully complied with the requirements of the law and has in the premises communicated the political parties to revise their party nomination rules and procedures. Chebukati directed all the political parties to revise and submit their nomination rules to the Commission by Tuesday next week. Chebukati says nomination rules that fail to comply with the requisite regulations shall be declared void and rejected. Consequently, the affected political parties will not be issued with a certificate of compliance and shall not participate in the 2022 general elections. Chebukati and his team were however cagey when contacted to highlight some of the nomination rules and procedures that had been infringed by political parties. Interestingly, as at October this year, Kenya had 83 fully registered political parties, while 22 had applied to the Register of Political Parties and issued with provisional registration certificates. According to Section 15, Subsection 2 of the Political Parties Act, provisional registration shall not entitle any political party to organize or hold public meetings in connection with any election or to propose or campaign for any candidate in any election. According to Chebukati's statement, 89 political parties submitted nomination rules. Yet, Kenya had 83 fully registered political parties by October 2021. Where did IEBC get the extra 6? Patrick Amimo, KTN News.
Well, let's see if all the parties comply with the IEBC regulations. But over to politics now, and Deputy President William Ruto just concluded his Day 3 tour of Nyanza region with a promise that he will continue giving out cash to groups in a bid to boost their businesses and hustles. Kevin Ugutu wraps his politics of benevolence in Nyanza region in this particular report. Listen in.
At exactly 3 p.m. on Tuesday, Ruto made his way to Susan Owiyo Art Center in Kisumu for a meeting with professionals from Nyanza region. This being the first meeting in his busy 3-day tour of the region.
Bottom up starts with creating jobs for these young people, supporting our Mama Mboga, Boda Boda, micro, small, medium enterprise people.
On day 2 of his tour, chaos rocked Kondele area in Kisumu for several minutes as a group of youth was evidently opposed to his stopping by. But despite the hostility, Ruto went ahead to promise sums of money to Kondele hustlers.
Watu wa bodaboda, mimi nimewaletea shilingi 2.5 milioni watu wa bodaboda wa Kondele, muweze kufanya biashara yenu. Nimewaletea kina mama wa hapa Kisumu, wa mama mboga. Nimewaletea vile vile shilingi 2 milioni waweze kuendesha biashara yao.
And on Thursday, it was the turn of residents in the counties of Homa Bay and Migori to get their share of William Ruto's spoils. After launching yet another attack on BBI constitutional amendment drive, it was time for donation, though there was no cash in sight.
Watu wa boda muko. Watu wa boda muko. mimi nitawapangia sawa sawa, shilingi milioni 1 nitawacha hapa ya watu wa bodaboda wajipange, na tutawacha hapa shilingi milioni 1 ingine ya kina mama wafanyabiashara wa hapa wote tauni hii.
From Homa Bay town, where he made a record 2 stops to address residents, his entourage headed to Muhuru and Sori, which are predominantly fishing towns.
Kabla sijaondoka hapa, sawa sawa, nimesema nitawacha hapa shilingi milioni 2 ya kusaidia hao wafanyabiashara wadogo wadogo wa tauni hii. Kwani iko nini? Kwani iko nini? Kama tunaelewana.
And from Sori, it was time to head to Migori town to crown the whole visit. All along, Ruto was accompanied by Migori Governor Okoth Obado.
Mwenye ako na mamlaka kubwa na zaidi, mamlaka ya kuchagua viongozi ni Migori oye!
In Migori, he met a sea of people, all claiming to be UDA supporters, and once again, Ruto reached for his pockets.
Wacha hapa shilingi milioni 2, hawa wafanyabiashara wainue biashara yao. Tunaelewana? Wainjuri.
Though this is Ruto's first tour of Nyanza region, he has vowed that it will not be the last, with the promise that the region is at the core of his development agenda when he assumes office. Kevin Ogutu, KTN News.
Okay, so that's the latest in the just concluded Nyanza tour. Even as he was camping on that side, Raila Odinga is set to tour the eastern region with claims of sidelining former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka. We'll see how that plays out. We'll definitely keep you